Hi, I would like to describe my trip with mescaline hydrochloride. And I took 250 milligrams, and this was one of the larger doses of the people that was there. And it was interesting because when we were weighing it out, everybody else, I weighed 110 to 115 pounds and at the time, and everybody else was twice my size basically, and they were all guys except for one girl, but everybody was bigger than me, and so they all took less doses than me. Usually they all ended up taking somewhere between 160 milligrams to 185 milligrams. That was about their dosage range. And so I kind of knew I was getting myself into something interesting with taking that much, but I had taken 185 or somewhere around that, or maybe 200 milligrams previously on a trip, and it just wasn't enough for me. It felt like MDMA, but just turned up a notch. So I thought by taking 250 milligrams, it would give me more of an entheogenic experience that I was looking for. Mescaline takes about 2 hours to start kicking in. So at the beginning of the experience, we all got into our pool outside, and we lived in Arizona, but we did this trip in the kind of fall, winter time, and so it was a little cool outside, and our pool was heated, and so we had it almost as warm as what a hot tub would be like. So it was a really nice way to ease into the trip. And then after a little while, I started feeling really nauseous. So I got out of the pool and had a little experience in the bathroom. and then I came out, and my legs were kind of tremoring and stuff. And then all of a sudden, because I didn't have any clothes on from the time that I had gotten in the pool, because we were all kind of swimming out there with, naked. And so when I came back in, I had no clothes on, and everybody else had came in at that point. They were all dressed and everything. And this is about at hour 3, so it's starting to kick in. And I start I don't know, it's the first time that I ever experienced kind of regression, I guess. And Stanislav Grof talks about this in his book, The Holotropic Mind. I know I've mentioned it in another video previously. And it's the first time that I ever really experienced this, because I felt like I sort of was interacting with everyone in our group like I would have been interacting with people that I would have, like people in my school or something, from the ages of 8 to 12. And so I felt like I literally was this little girl again. And it was really weird because I couldn't find my clothes. And so, because at the same time, I was also it was the first trip that I ever really experienced a distortion of size, almost like in Alice in Wonderland, and how, everything, she eats the little piece of the mushroom and she gets bigger, and she eats another thing and she gets littler, and all this. And so it was sort of like that, and so my clothes seemed too big for me. And so I was like, these are too big, they won't work, and I was running around everywhere. Everybody was giving me clothes, and I thought they were making fun of me because whenever I was little, 8 to 12, that range, a lot of people in my school made fun of me. I was the outcast, I guess, because I was the tallest girl in my grade, and of course I wear glasses. and I was the only one in the whole school in the gifted education program for people that need extra things to do because regular class gets boring. And so because I was smart, and because I wasn't so gifted at playing sports and things like that, I was definitely I got a lot of jokes and stuff played on me, and a lot of people sort of harassed me whenever I was little. And so, and I thought, I grew out of this. I was 19 whenever I was taking the mescaline, and I figured, hey, all that stuff's behind me now. I have friends and I have a life and whatever, But, this trip actually taught me that experience really stayed with me longer than I thought it did, and it was deep in my psyche there. And so I regressed back to that state, and I thought everybody was laughing at me, and everybody was making fun of me, and everybody was teasing me, and my clothes were all too big, and this went on for a couple of hours until finally I realized, hey, this wasn't, nobody was laughing at me. They were laughing because everybody was laughing. You're on mescaline, what can you do? and to be quite honest, if I saw somebody doing that, I'd be laughing my ass off at them, So, whatever, no, they weren't purposefully trying to give me clothes that were too big, but I thought they were teasing me. And plus I was in this mindset of almost like this 8 to 10-year-old or something, you know? And it was really weird for me at the time. And, you know, upon reflection after I came out of the trip, I realized that, you know, hey, going back to that space and really thinking about those hurt feelings that I had and really experiencing those hurt feelings from my childhood, it really helped me because it made me realize that, you know, now I can put some closure to those experiences. And now, like, instead of that part of my psyche sort of hanging me up, I guess, it doesn't do that anymore. And so experiencing that helped me to heal that part of myself. And so the Mescaline trip was really good for that. Also, looking back on this trip, after I've kind of learned a little bit more about my consciousness and our consciousness that we all share and what we all experience while we're having these peak entheogenic experiences. And it made me kind of think about a little bit more about what Stanislav Grof was saying, because he talks about in his book, The Holotropic Mind, he talks about people regressing, and then they regress to the point that they experience their birth, and he talks about how people actually could feel like what it was like to be in the womb. And now, I've never experienced this, but he says that over thousands of sessions of people on LSD that he observed, that people actually were experiencing this. And then what he says is like, when you transcend, you sort of go and you experience, it's like the same thing you go through when you are born, when you die. And so it's all interconnected. And so like you regress to the point that you're in the womb, and then you regress to the point that before you were in the womb, and that is the same as what happens when you die. It's sort of an interesting concept to wrap your mind around. And it's interesting to think about it like that, even though I don't know that I've ever actually experienced it like that. I think that how I've experienced it is more of a developmental evolution. And so when you transcend, you're not regressing to the point to where you were born and then before you were born, but you are, in a sense, letting your ego go, and you're dying, and then all of a sudden you've transcended into this more evolved state of mind. And that in some ways is what Ken Wilber is talking about. And I read his book Eye to Eye, and I highly recommend it if you guys are interested in understanding some of that, because, you know, I think when he describes in his book about the transcending through evolution, I think it's also another good concept to kind of wrap your mind around, because, you know, we're all just sort of wondering, you know, and thinking about these things. You know, I think some of us know, but it's like how to really explain it, and how to explain it for sure, because there's so many, like, there's so many contradictions when you look at it, and paradoxes, because it's like, if birth is death, then it's all the, you know, it's so interconnected. And I think it's beautiful to be able to grasp both the concepts of what happens in transcendence, because the more different concepts that we can sort of grasp and understand, the better equipped we are to be able to interpret what we experience. And even though my Mescaline trip didn't really take me to the Godhead, or I didn't really have a lot of really spiritual moments, in a lot of ways it was so good for me, because I was able to explore a hurt part of myself and heal that part. And then I was able to become a much more whole and better person and ready for my next journeys.